That evening, in the first of multiple meetings between the two men, he told his incredible story as the case officer sat transfixed, the sludgy coffee turning cold in his cup. On a hill overlooking the capital stood a complex of heavily guarded laboratories where Syria's military establishment carried out experiments on new weapons. The Foreign Intelligence Services were well familiar with the Scientific Studies and Research Center, commonly known as CERS, its French initials, as the place that supplied the engineering muscle behind Syria's modest line of missiles designed to deliver conventional warheads to Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. But hidden within CERS was a secret unit called Institute 3000, and Ayman was one of its leaders and senior researchers. Its primary work was making a line of exceedingly lethal poisons to be placed inside those warheads. The scientists called their project al-Shakush, or in English, the Hammer. In part because of his own contributions, Institute 3000 had made remarkable strides, the chemist said. Syria's chemical weapons program had started simply with mustard gas, famously used in the trenches of Europe during the epic battles of World War I. But now it had moved to a far deadlier class of poisons called nerve agents, which Institute 3000 was beginning to produce in an underground factory just outside the capital. These were nightmare weapons, and the Syrians had created multiple variations so they could adjust to changing battlefield conditions. One of them, sarin, had been around for half a century and still was regarded as one of the deadliest substances ever made. Another one, called VX, was even deadlier than sarin and longer lasting. It left behind an invisible oily coating that could kill for days, since the slightest brush against bare skin is nearly always fatal. The case officer listened thoughtfully. The CIA had long known of Syria's interest in making chemical weapons, but the extent of Damascus's progress was unclear. Twice in public statements in the late 1980s, Syrian officials had hinted about a new deterrent, a made-in-Syria answer to Israel's nuclear bombs. Was this what they meant? If the chemist felt the slightest ambivalence about his work, he gave no sign of it. The United States and the Soviet Union had developed entire weapons systems based on such poisons in the 1950s and 1960s. Why shouldn't Syria have the same right to deter aggression by its nuclear-armed neighbor? Whenever Israel came up in conversation, it was clear that subject was intensely personal. Twice in the chemist's lifetime, Syria had endured the humiliation of having its southern border overrun by Israeli tanks. In 1967, when the Jewish state captured the Golan Heights, and again during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, when the Israeli army chased retreating Syrian battalions to within 25 miles of Damascus. From now on, things would be different, the scientist said. Future invaders would find themselves engulfed in a fog of suffocating gases that would leave their bodies strewn across the dusty valleys of Syria's southwestern frontier. Those who survived would be among the first to see the contrails of Syrian missiles heading south to deliver the same fate to distant Israeli cities. The chemist eyed his guest with a look that conveyed both satisfaction and deadly earnestness. "You should warn the Jews," he said. The chemist became particularly animated whenever the conversation turned to sarin. Of all the weapons under development within Institute 3000, the chemist was clearly proudest of his sarin work. Sarin is a perfect killer, as the Nazis learned when they inadvertently discovered the compound while testing new kinds of pesticides in the 1930s. Military-grade sarin is 26 times deadlier than cyanide, and it works by attacking the nervous system, quickly paralyzing the muscles used in breathing, so that the victim dies an agonizing death of asphyxiation. Just a whiff of vapor, and the poison would grasp a man with the deadly intensity of a python's embrace, squeezing him until he lacked even the breath with which to utter a final prayer. But making pure sarin, the kind that the Soviets and Americans manufactured by the ton during the Cold War, is hard for a small country with a modest industrial base. And lesser grades of the poison tended to deteriorate with time, so the chemist devised a clever workaround. His laboratories would make a form of binary sarin, two stable liquids that could be stored